Imagine a busy winter morning in New York City, the streets alive with shoppers, the air filled with the sounds of carriages and conversation. Dorothy Arnold, a beautiful, poised young woman with a sharp mind and big dreams, steps out into the hustle and bustle. She's dressed in her finest, her steps confident as she heads down Fifth Avenue, blending seamlessly into the familiar crowd. This was just another day for her, a simple errand, a chance to pick up a gown for her sister's debutante ball. But as the sun dips below the horizon, Dorothy Arnold will vanish without a single cry for help, without a single clue. She will disappear as if the city itself had swallowed her whole. No witnesses, no answers, only a mystery that would haunt her family, the police, and the city for decades to come. Where did Dorothy Arnold go? And who might hold the key to a truth buried in the shadows of old New York? Dorothy's footsteps echo along Fifth Avenue, mingling with the lively hum of New York's most fashionable street. She's in high spirits, her face bright as she moves purposefully from store to store. Several familiar faces pass by, offering nods and smiles, and each later recalls seeing her as cheerful, composed, just Dorothy being Dorothy. Around noon, she encounters her friend Gladys King, a casual, friendly exchange amid the bustling sidewalks. They chat about trivial things, the kind of conversation that holds no weight until it becomes the last known words exchanged. As they part ways, Dorothy smiles and mentions she has a few more stops to make. Gladys watches her disappear into the crowd, never suspecting it would be for the last time. What happened after this parting? Did Dorothy continue down Fifth Avenue as planned, or was her path diverted by someone, something that left no trace? In this moment, the line between reality and nightmare blurs, and Dorothy's fate drifts into a silence no one would break. As the sun dips below the horizon, the Arnold family begins to notice Dorothy's absence. She was expected hours ago, and Dorothy was nothing if not reliable. At first, they brush it off, thinking she might have gotten caught up with friends or perhaps attended an impromptu event in the city. But Dorothy would have sent word, she always did. The hours tick by, and with each passing minute, their comfort wanes, replaced by an uneasy feeling that no one dares voice. By nightfall, worry hardens into dread. The streets outside their home are quiet, and there's no knock at the door, no sign of Dorothy returning from her errands. Her mother paces, glancing out the window, while her father's brow creases with concern. This is no ordinary delay. As midnight nears, an unspoken realization settles in. Dorothy Arnold, their spirited daughter, has vanished into thin air. As the hours of Dorothy's absence stretch into days, the Arnold family makes an unusual decision. They will keep her disappearance a secret. Her father, Francis Arnold, is adamant. Calling the police would draw attention, stir up rumors, and tarnish the family's reputation. The Arnolds are well known in New York's social circles, and scandal would spread like wildfire. The last thing they want is the public whispering about their daughter. Instead of involving the authorities, Francis turns to the Pinkerton Detective Agency, instructing them to conduct their search quietly, away from prying eyes. The Pinkertons are known for their discretion, but even they find this request unusual. Why such secrecy? Why go to these lengths to keep Dorothy's disappearance out of the spotlight? Was there something in Dorothy's life that the family wanted to hide, something they believed might unravel their carefully constructed reputation? As the detectives begin their covert investigation, one question lingers. Is the Arnold family protecting their daughter or their own secrets? As the Pinkerton detectives delve into Dorothy's life, They uncover a revelation that changes the entire course of the investigation, a hidden romance, one that Dorothy had kept carefully shielded from her family's strict gaze. The man was George Griscom Jr., a wealthy and well traveled gentleman over a decade her senior. Their connection wasn't a fleeting infatuation, it was intense, passionate, and secretive. For a woman in Dorothy's social standing, such a relationship could spell disaster if made public. George wasn't the kind of man her family would approve of. He was older, mysterious, and lived a lifestyle that raised eyebrows in New York society. Rumors hinted that the couple had even spent time together in Boston under false pretenses, Dorothy lying to her family to steal moments with the man she loved. Could it be that Dorothy had planned to escape with George, a bold move to defy her family's wishes? Or did this forbidden love somehow lead her into danger? The detectives now had a new angle to explore, but as they dug deeper, each piece of information only thickened the mystery. Did George hold the answers they needed, or was he as much in the dark as the rest of them? And if Dorothy's romance with him was the key, just how dangerous had her love become? The detectives finally tracked down George Griscom, the mysterious man at the center of Dorothy's secret life. At the time of Dorothy's disappearance, he's in Europe, far from the swirling chaos in New York. When questioned, George appears devastated, claiming he had no idea Dorothy was even missing until days later. He speaks passionately of his love for her, painting a picture of a romance untainted by any ill intentions. But his story raises questions. Why was he so quick to distance himself, retreating to Europe just as Dorothy vanished? Was it mere coincidence, or was he running from something? Griscom insists he would never hurt Dorothy, and the pain in his voice feels real. Yet, he offers little beyond professions of love, no details that could help explain her fate. The detectives are left questioning his sincerity. Is George truly heartbroken, or is this an act to cover his tracks? And if he is innocent, could Dorothy's disappearance be her way of joining him, escaping the confines of her family's expectations? The answers lie somewhere in George's guarded silence, a silence that keeps detectives and Dorothy's family teetering between hope and despair. As the investigation drags on with little progress, whispers begin to circulate among both the public and those close to the case. A chilling theory emerges, a possibility that adds a new layer of complexity to Dorothy's disappearance. Some speculate that Dorothy may have been pregnant, an unthinkable situation for an unmarried woman from a strict and prominent family like the Arnolds. In early 20th century society, such a scandal could ruin reputations and lives. The pressure, the shame, the fear of ostracization could it have driven Dorothy to take desperate measures? Rumors suggest she might have sought an illegal procedure, one that was both dangerous and shrouded in secrecy. But if this theory holds any truth, it raises more questions than answers. Did something go terribly wrong during the procedure? If so, who was involved and where could her body be? Or did the fear of disgrace push Dorothy to disappear voluntarily, starting anew where no one knew her name? The detectives chased down every lead, visiting clinics operating in the shadows, interviewing anyone who might have aided in such matters. Yet they find no evidence, no witnesses who recall a woman matching Dorothy's description. The trail is cold, but the possibility cannot be dismissed. This theory, while unsettling, forces everyone to consider the lengths to which Dorothy might have gone to protect herself and her family from scandal. It paints a picture of a young woman trapped by the expectations of her society, possibly making a choice that led her into even greater peril. The abortion theory remains one of the most haunting possibilities in Dorothy Arnold's case, a path that, if true, underscores the silent struggles she may have faced. It leaves investigators and her family grappling with a painful question. Did the pressures of her world drive Dorothy into the shadows from which she would never emerge? A few weeks into Dorothy's disappearance, a letter arrives at the Arnold household addressed to her parents. The family gathers around, hearts pounding, as they open the envelope. The message is brief, almost haunting in its vagueness. Dorothy writes that she is unwell and that she does not wish to return home, at least not yet. The wording is strangely impersonal, lacking the warmth one would expect in a message meant to reassure a worried family. The letter sets the detectives on edge. Could Dorothy truly be alive somewhere, struggling but safe? Or is this letter a carefully crafted lie, meant to mislead and delay the investigation? Handwriting experts are brought in, scrutinizing each curve, each stroke of the pen. Some believe the writing matches Dorothy's. Others see subtle inconsistencies that make them suspicious. The debate only heightens the tension, splitting opinion between hope and doubt. If Dorothy did write it, her words raise an even darker question. Why doesn't she want to come home? And if someone else penned this note, who would go to such lengths to make her family believe she's alive, yet unreachable? The letter sits heavily in the Arnold home, a cruel tease that promises answers but offers none. In its cryptic lines lies either a plea for time or a calculated effort to derail the search for Dorothy. As detectives wrestle with its implications, they're left wondering, is this Dorothy's voice or the chilling echo of someone else's deception? A glimmer of hope surfaces when a witness steps forward, claiming to have seen a young woman who looked strikingly like Dorothy Arnold on the night she vanished. The sighting occurred in Central Park, a shadowed expanse that seemed to swallow up anyone who dared to wander its paths after dark. The witness describes the woman as appearing distressed, her gaze darting around as if she were lost or afraid. Alone and visibly troubled, she seemed to drift into the darkness, slipping into the park's vastness without a sound. The detectives jump on this lead, combing the area in a thorough search. They scour every corner, hoping to uncover even the faintest clue, a discarded item, a footprint, anything that might confirm Dorothy had been there. But the park yields nothing. No witnesses recall seeing her near the area, no belongings are found, and the trails are cold and unforgiving. Yet, the image lingers of a lone woman, distraught and disappearing into the shadows. Could Dorothy, disoriented or desperate, have found herself wandering the secluded pathways of Central Park? Or was this just another look-alike, a figment of desperate imaginations and wishful thinking? The detectives are left wrestling with the haunting possibility that, if it was Dorothy, they might have been just one step behind her that night, as she vanished deeper into the mystery that would never release its grip. 6 agonizing weeks pass, each day weighed down by the silence of Dorothy's absence. Reluctantly, the Arnold family decides to let the story go public, hoping that the city's sharpest minds and watchful eyes might uncover what the private detectives could not. The newspapers explode with the story of Dorothy's disappearance, her photograph gracing the front pages, her name whispered in every corner of New York. The case has everything the public craves: mystery, scandal, and the haunting question of a socialite gone missing. Reporters dive into Dorothy's life, unearthing details about her circle of friends, her ambitions, and the secret romance with George Griscom Jr. With each article, speculation grows wilder. Was she a runaway, a victim of foul play, or had she simply slipped away to start anew? Theories flourish, each one more sensational than the last, feeding a public hungry for answers and drama. But the onslaught of information brings a danger of its own. As each newspaper chases the next lead, the truth becomes tangled in half truths and rumors. Witnesses emerge, but their accounts are contradictory, blurred by the haze of time and public intrigue. In the chaos of speculation, Dorothy's story is reshaped and refracted, and the path to truth becomes obscured. The family and detectives are left sifting through the noise, hoping that, somewhere in the frenzy of headlines and anonymous tips, the key to Dorothy's fate lies hidden. But as the story spins further from their grasp, they can't help but wonder, has the truth been lost amid the clamor of a city desperate to solve a mystery that refuses to yield? The floodgates open as Dorothy's face, now unmistakable to the public, appears in newspapers across the nation. Suddenly, reports pour in from every corner of New York and beyond. Anonymous callers claim to have seen her at bustling train stations, on ferries bound for distant shores, even as far as the western states. To some, she looked like a lost soul, to others, a woman on a mission, slipping quietly through crowds as if trying to escape unseen. Each sighting brings a surge of hope, but the leads are maddeningly vague. Investigators chase these glimpses of Dorothy across the city, each time returning empty handed, no closer to the truth than before. Some reports feel plausible, others absurd, but all carry the same question. If this is Dorothy, what is she running from, and why can't they catch up to her? For the detectives, the scattered sightings seem almost too convenient, as if they were being led on a wild chase. They start to wonder if someone is deliberately sowing confusion, throwing them off the trail. But if that's the case, who would go to such lengths, and for what purpose? With every passing day, the sightings grow stranger and more sporadic, stretching from coast to coast until the idea of finding Dorothy feels like chasing a shadow that dances just out of reach. Is she truly out there, hiding from a life she couldn't face? Or has the story of her disappearance become a ghost story, with the public chasing phantoms that lead nowhere? As days turn into weeks, the Arnold family begins receiving unexpected telegrams from George Griscom, Dorothy's secret lover. The messages are filled with pleas and offers of assistance, each one more desperate than the last. He insists that he loved Dorothy, that he could never have harmed her, that he, too, is lost without knowing where she's gone. Griscom paints himself as a concerned lover, heartbroken and anxious to aid in any way he can. But his behavior raises questions that no one can ignore. Why did he wait so long to reach out? If he was truly worried, why didn't he contact the Arnolds immediately? The telegrams feel almost performative, as though Griscom is carefully crafting his image, trying to prove his innocence with words rather than actions. And yet, he offers little in terms of new information, no clues, no insights, just pleas and promises. Investigators can't help but wonder if there's something he's holding back. Does he know more than he's letting on? Is this sudden burst of concern genuine, or is it an attempt to steer suspicion away from himself? Griscom's telegrams add a new layer of mystery, a hint of possible guilt wrapped in professions of love. The Arnolds and the detectives are left questioning. Is George Griscom truly a grieving lover, or is he manipulating the family's desperation to cover his own secrets? As hope for Dorothy's safe return dwindles, Francis Arnold, her father, becomes consumed by a dark and unsettling theory. He believes that his daughter may have met a violent end, her life cut short by someone who wanted her silence, or perhaps her disappearance. In his mind, the culprit could have hidden her body in one of the city's most secretive untraceable places. The Central Park Reservoir. This theory, though chilling, isn't entirely far fetched. The reservoir is vast, deep, and within walking distance from the last area Dorothy was seen. Francis is haunted by the image of his daughter lost beneath its waters, her fate hidden under the tranquil surface. Driven by this fear, he urges the detectives to search the reservoir thoroughly, hoping against hope that he's wrong, but unable to shake the dreadful suspicion gnawing at him. The detectives comply, organizing a detailed search. Divers scour the depths, and each movement is closely watched by Francis, his face lined with grief and determination. But the search yields nothing, no clothing, no traces, no sign of Dorothy. Yet Francis's conviction does not fade. The lack of evidence doesn't bring him peace. Instead, it plants a deeper seed of doubt, a persistent whisper that something sinister lies beyond the reach of their search. Though the theory remains unproven, Francis's insistence casts a shadow over the case. To him, every unanswered question and every dead end lead only strengthens his belief that someone wanted Dorothy gone and concealed her where no one would ever find her. As the investigation intensifies, detectives sift through Dorothy's personal belongings, hoping that something among her possessions might unlock the mystery of her disappearance. Among her elegant dresses and cherished keepsakes, they find a stack of papers, manuscripts, and letters from various publishers. Dorothy had dreamed of becoming a writer, and her submissions reflect that ambition, but the letters tell a different story. They are polite but firm rejections, each one a quiet blow to her hopes and aspirations. The detectives examine the manuscripts, imagining the passion and vulnerability poured into each page. But the rejections suggest a struggle Dorothy kept hidden, a private battle against a world that seemed indifferent to her dreams. Had the weight of failure become too much? Was Dorothy fighting a despair that her family and friends knew nothing about? This discovery raises troubling possibilities. Perhaps Dorothy had simply walked away, escaping the pressures of a life that no longer felt like her own. Or could these mounting rejections have pushed her towards something darker, a final act of desperation that no one saw coming? The detectives are left with a haunting question. Did Dorothy leave by choice, determined to start anew? Or was her silence a cry for help, a cry that was ignored until it was too late? Each rejected manuscript becomes a window into Dorothy's private world, revealing glimpses of a young woman weighed down by unfulfilled dreams. The detectives can't help but wonder if, in the silence between those lines, lay a despair too deep to bear. As the search drags on with no trace of Dorothy, a painful theory begins to surface, a possibility that no one wants to believe, but that the detectives can no longer ignore. They suggest that perhaps Dorothy took her own life. The recent rejections, her unrequited dreams, the pressures of her family's high expectations, all could have driven her to a breaking point. It's a theory grounded in despair, and though no one close to Dorothy wants to believe it, the detectives feel obligated to consider every possibility. But there are gaps in this explanation that cast doubt on its validity. For one, Dorothy left no note, no parting words, nothing to indicate that she'd reached such a devastating decision. Friends and family describe her as spirited, resilient, someone who could withstand setbacks without succumbing to despair. The idea that she would vanish without any word, leaving her loved ones to suffer, feels uncharacteristic to those who knew her best. Another possibility lingers in the detectives' minds, that Dorothy might have chosen a different kind of escape. Perhaps she didn't end her life, but instead fled from it. Could she have left New York with plans to start over, somewhere far enough away to leave her past behind? The notion of self-imposed exile seems more in line with her character, a way to break free from her family's strictures and the crushing weight of her unrealized dreams. These theories, suicide or disappearance, hang heavily over the case, each one casting a shadow of uncertainty. Was Dorothy a victim of her own despair, lost to a moment of hopelessness, or did she grasp the only freedom she saw left, choosing to vanish into a life of her own making? As the detectives weigh these grim possibilities, they are left with no definitive answers, only haunting questions that linger in the spaces Dorothy left behind. Driven by the need for answers, the detectives make one last attempt to question George Griscom, the man at the center of Dorothy's hidden life. This time, Griscom is surprisingly forthcoming, a change from his initial evasiveness. He appears worn, perhaps haunted by the mounting suspicions and rumors that surround Dorothy's fate. Sitting across from the detectives, he offers them every detail he can recall about their last days together, describing each conversation and moment with a mixture of affection and sorrow. Griscom insists that Dorothy showed no indication of despair or a desire to disappear. According to him, she was hopeful, still dreaming of breaking into the literary world despite her recent setbacks. He describes her as strong willed, someone who would face her problems head on rather than retreating into darkness. His words paint a picture of a woman resilient and undeterred, a stark contrast to the theories of suicide or runaway. And yet, despite Griscom's sincerity, doubt lingers. His connection to Dorothy was intense, secretive, and complex. Was his account colored by his own guilt, perhaps by what he wanted to believe about her rather than the truth? Griscom's cooperation raises as many questions as it answers. The detectives wonder if he's truly as heartbroken as he appears, or if he's holding back some final, essential piece of the puzzle. Griscom's words echo in the detectives' minds as they leave, his statements laced with a sincerity that feels real but cannot be verified. He might be the only person who truly understood Dorothy's inner world, yet his assurances offer no proof, only a version of events that no one can confirm. The detectives leave him with the sense that they're closer to Dorothy's truth, yet still maddeningly distant from the answers they seek. As the case grows colder and answers remain elusive, whispers begin to circulate, whispers that hint at something darker, something concealed within the walls of the Arnold family home. Dorothy's family, after all, was among New York's elite, wielding social and financial power that could influence far beyond their private lives. As public interest in the case wanes, a new theory surfaces. Perhaps the Arnold family knows more about Dorothy's fate than they're letting on. Could they be hiding something to protect their reputation? It's not unthinkable that a family of their stature would go to extraordinary lengths to shield themselves from scandal, especially if Dorothy's disappearance involved something that could tarnish their carefully cultivated image. To the detectives, the family's initial refusal to involve the police and their later attempts to manage the investigation discreetly suddenly take on a suspicious tone. Was this desire for privacy merely a reflection of their status, or was it an indication of a cover up? The detectives start to question if their search for Dorothy has been misdirected from the beginning, sidetracked by family influence. They begin to wonder if they're chasing ghosts, pursuing a narrative carefully constructed by those who knew her best. Could a dark family secret lie at the heart of this mystery, one they've managed to keep hidden from the world? With each passing day, the theory grows, fueled by the family's silence and evasiveness. Dorothy's fate is beginning to feel like a tightly guarded secret, locked away not by an unknown assailant, but perhaps by those who shared her last name. The detectives face a grim realization. They may be up against more than just a mystery, They may be confronting the formidable power of a family willing to bury the truth, whatever the cost. Months turn into years, and despite the detective's best efforts, Dorothy Arnold's trail grows colder with each passing day. Leads dry up, and the relentless press eventually moves on, drawn to fresh stories and new scandals. New York's bustling streets and high society, once consumed with Dorothy's vanishing, now buzz with different news, her face gradually fading from memory. Yet for her family, and for those close to her, the absence is unbearable, a hollow reminder of a young woman who simply vanished into thin air. The mystery lingers in their lives like a shadow that refuses to lift, a haunting presence in the quiet of their home. Decades pass, but the name Dorothy Arnold remains a whisper in the annals of American crime, a story that resurfaces occasionally, intriguing each new generation with its eerie simplicity and haunting lack of resolution. Detectives, journalists, and true crime enthusiasts revisit her case over the years, each one hoping to find the missing link, that elusive piece of evidence that could reveal the truth. Was it a lover's secret, a family scandal, an act of violence hidden under New York's glittering veneer? The questions remain, haunting every investigator who once walked those paths, leaving behind only a trail of unanswered questions and fragmented theories. In the end, Dorothy's story endures as one of history's most haunting mysteries, a life of promise, cut short by forces no one truly understands. We're left with a multitude of possibilities, but no certainty. Did Dorothy run from a life that confined her? Was she the victim of a dark plot, silenced by someone close to her? Or does the answer lie in the depths of New York itself, buried and lost to time? As we close the chapter on Dorothy Arnold's tale, we can only speculate, left with a story that beckons us to wonder and reflect. What really happened on that December day in 1910? If you have theories, if you believe there's a clue yet to be discovered, share your thoughts in the comments below. Perhaps together we might shed new light on a mystery that's waited over a century for resolution.